problem why black boys cannot read and not reading is just multi-leveled. You know, there's the language problem. There's the cultural gap in the classroom. There's a lack of appropriate literature in the classroom.
The reason I think black boys don't like to read, because they don't have the interest in it. They don't have the passion to read. They just want to be on their phones and stuff. They don't understand the value of it.
So all these things combined with just the fact that they don't have to do anything, everything is easy for them, they don't have to tie their shoes, they don't have to put a belt on, they don't have to have their shirts tucked in, all these things contribute to why they don't read. It's not popular anymore, it's not the thing to do.
The reason I think black boys don't like to read is because they think it's like lame and not interesting.
Again, why can't black boys read? It's not a matter of can't, it's why aren't they reading? And I think that a lot of it has to do with the foundations that they're given early on.
They're lazy, and their attention has been diverted away from school.
To me, I don't like reading because I don't got time, and when I go home, I don't think about reading, I think about playing the video games.
One of the reasons I think, and I've worked in my current school district for about 11 years, and we have a large population of African American males. And one of the biggest problems I found is that a lot of our students don't have parents at home. Most of our parents are working a lot, trying to provide for their children. And so a lot of times they don't have a parent at home that is helping them with those reading skills.
A black child, on the other hand, doesn't learn the basics until he's probably in the 6th grade. So there's a difference, a big difference. On the end, we lose.
Black boys don't like to read because when it comes down to reading, they feel that when in life they don't really need it.
African American children don't hear, they don't discriminate the sounds and the words, because part of acquiring a language is that you attend to the sounds that your family, your culture uses. And all other sounds are masked out. So when they come into a classroom, they're not hearing everything the teacher's saying.
We have a dumbing down of our culture in America, and it's having an adverse effect on us in particular. We already were using the words like fo instead of for, do instead of door. And when you add these particular aspects to social media, where it becomes okay to speak like that, or not speak, but to communicate like that, then what do you have? You're going to continue to have this progression of our children not reading.
I'm dumb, I'm a dodo, still in the hood, I got work for the Lolo. I'm still in the ghetto, everywhere I go, I bet the girls take photos.
Second thing is their home surroundings. There's not much parental support at home. Practically, these young boys are raising their own selves, or grandmothers raise them.
The reason why black people don't like to read because most black people do not like to read because it's boring and it takes too long and you got to read a lot of paragraphs and stuff, and it is not interesting to people.
There's a gap between the cultural orientation of the teacher and the cultural orientation of the student, particularly boys. That cultural gap even prevents them from interacting in a way that the child feels appreciated and cared for, and that the teacher understands, this child is functioning out of their own culture. They're behaving the way they're accustomed to behaving. And it's not for the child to make that adjustment as much as it is for the teacher to.
I advise several of my friends who have children, I said, make sure that before your child goes to kindergarten that they can at least recognize letters. And of course the phonemes all of that comes along, the phonics that comes along as they grow and they develop. But to have a relationship with print, I think that that's something that somehow along the lines of, with all of what we have technologically, and all the advancements that some of the parents think that are helping the students by ways of technology, they are not. It's no substitute for a relationship, that relationship between a child's eyes and a child's mind in print.
Another thing I think with some of our children is we put such an emphasis on sports a lot of times in going in, and a lot of our gentlemen want to be professional athletes. And they don't understand that to get to that point, you're still going to have to be able to read. To play in college, to play in high school, you have to pass your classes. And so we've got to get them to understand that also, instead of just thinking, I'm going to make millions of dollars being a pro athlete sooner or later in my life.
There has been a social shift, and we don't account for that in the academic curriculum setting. Not when it comes to African American children, black boys or black girls. It really doesn't matter. The black community is an irrelevant piece when it comes to the academic curriculum. We just sit around and we wait for the state to give us what the academic requirements are, and it's void of the holistic human developmental model. It doesn't include the many different social variables, historical social variables that has created what we now see.
So I start this conversation off with a question that you may have heard before, and that it's a simple question. Do you think, and I just really want you just to really be honest in this portion of the conversation, but do you really think honestly that young black boys like you all are and like I was at some point, do you think that we really like to read? All right, we'll start at the end.
I think that black people don't like to read because it probably won't entertain them.
Mm-hmm. So you say that the entertainment isn't enough. Like, you don't think that there's enough entertaining literature out there that's engaging for you, okay? Now you said black people, black boys, or just black people in general?
Black people in general.
Okay, good answer.
I think, why? Because it's boring to people. They don't really maybe understand, or, like he said, it's not entertaining. Maybe it needs more detail that the books they're reading, or, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
I think, no, like he said, it's not entertaining, and most of the times there's not really pictures or in the book, or there's too many pages they don't want to read.
It is designed to be this way. They can't read because we as adults also don't read. When I'm out there, I see many, you would be surprised at the number of adults who are functionally illiterate working right next to you, but they can't read.
Now, you hear about African American boys can't learn. The truth is, the curriculum is set up in a way that once you get past third grade, the fundamental reading skills are no longer taught. So this is not about the child not being able to learn to read. It's a curriculum that does not address those children's needs at that stage.
It's acceptable to be dumb now. Now what's going to happen, these same young men are going to grow up, and they won't be able to get a driver's license because they're going to have to take a test. And they won't have a chance to cheat or copy off anybody. And that's going to trickle down to a number of things that are needed for kids, these young black men, to learn how to read.
Black boys that don't, they feel like they can just be famous for their athletic ability, their art ability, and not anything else than what they see on TV.
I think sometimes it's easier to just give this piece of technology to a student and say, well, here it is, and rather than facilitate what happens, that relationship between the child and the technology, what happens, we have adults that become voyeurs rather than facilitators. And kids need teachers. Reading, a love of reading is something that is shared, just like a love for anything else. And if you are sharing a passion for reading with a child, be it through technology, be it through, a book, I think that, it adds value to the process. And I think that, kids they really do pay attention to what the adults value around them.
We need to have an educational nursery for our black kids. We need to have a strong institution for our black men. And then we'll start seeing more doctors. We'll start seeing more lawyers. We'll start seeing more judges. We'll start seeing more law enforcement officers, more teachers.
So, from my perspective, my professional experience and my academic background, the solution to the problem of black boys not being able to read, most of them, is changing our perspective. And when I say our, I mean teachers, administrators, policymakers, and parents about what we need to do to change this phenomenon.
I think one of the ways we help solve the problem is we get our parents more involved. We give workshops to our parents maybe on the weekends on ways that they can help their children at home to become better readers. We find out what our gentleman's interest is. If their interest is sports, we find books about sports that they can read. That way we're giving them materials that they're interested in and not just asking them to read out of a textbook every single day.
We have to do better as black men. We do. And we can't sit atop and look down and ask and have the audacity to ask those questions of our young black men. Well, while you're down there, pull your pants up. Right? while you're down there, because how do you expect to make it up here with your pants hanging down when we aren't even modeling to them how important it is to read? And that's
not just among our children. That's among our community and among the parents that now are raising these children. We now live in a virtual reality, and these children, they spend most of their time on a phone or in front of a computer. Very few schools even use school books anymore. So most of the backpacks are just full of the stuff that they're going to be hanging out and see the school, athletic wear, which is the only thing that we, unfortunately, seem to award most of the time.
I think what's going to have to happen is that some way, somehow, we're going to have to get out and it's going to have to happen, unfortunately, in the schools. Because many of the homes, because if you're dealing with the home situation, that's a whole different scenario and a whole different subject matter that we have to attack. But we have to get support from our politicians. We have to get support from our spiritual leaders and that contribute books and contribute financing and support to these teachers because they need to be supported. We also have to have volunteers. You have to volunteer your time. Don't talk about the problem or get frustrated with the problem. Volunteer occasionally and go into a school district and do a reading. Give a teacher a break. We can have that type of situation. Give a teacher a break. You go in there and the teacher gets a break. Somebody from the community and does it. I know that in many of the prestigious white districts, the parents have a strong volunteer base.
We're missing that. Very few parents sit down and have their children read to them for 15 minutes, even 30 minutes, 5 minutes. Most of the time it's go get you something to eat, Go turn the TV, get out of the face. I've been working all day. I'm tired. They don't have time. No one socialized. You be in the house and the child will be texting the mom from the bedroom. This is the type of society we live in. And we keep thinking that that's not going to affect, academic outcome.
I think one way we fix it is we need to have educators that are able to spot these types of things happening at an early age. If you have a teacher that is very caring and wants to take the time to help a student, and they're willing to also reach out to the parents and find ways to help the parents, then maybe we can get our young men to read on grade level sooner. If we're having educators that are just sitting back and saying, oh, well, the next year can take care of this, or, well, they're only a year behind at this point, then we're never going to get them caught up. We've got to have people put in place that are willing to give that extra hand and give a little bit of extra help.
Well, we don't even have to talk about the future because we're devastated now. We're talking about 5-year-olds now who are being kicked out of public school systems, for behavior issues. 5-year-olds. At no time when I was young did we have elementary alternative schools, but we do now. So what are we waiting on? While we're waiting on the 3-year-old murderer, a 5-year-old murderer? 5-year-olds right now understand the concept of murder. What are we waiting on? And this is the sad part. We have been so racially divided in this country that we don't realize now how that racial divide now has almost closed the complete gap, because what's happening to our children is happening to theirs also. And now it's a crisis now. Now we need to get out there and we're going to accommodate all these social illness and behaviors that we see with our children. We're going to accommodate that in the classroom, in a learning setting. And we're going to put it all on the teacher to fix it. While the administrative side of it, well, they sit back and play politics and red tape and say, let's put a cosmetic look on it. Let's make it look like we're doing a whole lot and everything. But clearly, you can just follow the grades. Follow the level of reading and comprehension. Follow it. And you'll see that all of that, well, it's not working. If it was, we wouldn't continue to see a steady incline of negative social behavior getting younger and younger every year. We wouldn't see that.
So I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged because when I taught African American boys, I had some that made phenomenal progress with the type of instruction that diagnoses their reading ability and teaches them on their instructional level and provides them with a classroom that's culturally relevant to them, everything I teach. And so I strongly encourage parents to be active in their children's schools, but also learn what they need to learn to be able to help. And to be a part in the voting for your school trustees. And with the proper type of instruction and the proper learning environment, Black boys can learn to read and they can achieve. And we know that because we know there's so many who, in spite of the way school was for them and what they accomplished, when they matured and they were ready to learn, they were able to take what they had and teach themselves and exceed. And there are many stories, success stories like that.
It's only one way to fix it. We have to go back. We have to go back to the fundamental basis of all humanity. Integrity, dignity, honor, respect, and love. Let's look at that. Let's look at the core of what are we missing from a human developmental model holistically. What do a human being need in order to survive, in order to take care of itself? So let's focus on that. Let's get back to focusing in on that. And now, you know what that does? That then makes the young people have value in self. And when a young person or any human being have value in themselves, you don't spend your time trying to convince them why they need to learn something. You have to answer the question, why do I need to learn first? Why do they need to learn? Because they can clearly see millionaires and billionaires and people all day long who have become successful. And some of these people did not get a college degree. See, we have to be very careful what we say because young people deal with reality. They're realists. And they're also the most honest because they are a true reflection of society. They are the true reflection of what's going on in your household, in your community, in your city, in your nation.